Welcome to Feminist Founders, the community for entrepreneurs who are ready to reject toxic capitalism and do business differently and better. We're your hosts, Becky Mollenkamp and Faith Clark, and we're so excited you're here. If you'd like to support our work, please consider a paid membership. Information is in the show notes. But without further ado, let's get into today's episode. Hi, Paige. How are you?
Hi, I'm great. Thank you. How are you today?
Well, I have my puppy dog in my lap, which is very nice. She's sleeping and snuggling.
What else do you need?
I mean, right? It sort of feels like my own little sabbatical in a way, but I'm excited to talk about sabbaticals.
Yes.
Because this is something that I feel like I've been hearing more and more about from, like, I've always heard about sabbaticals from professors, right? They take sabbaticals, they go, I think they do research. I think they also just take time off, whatever. But
yeah, I think a lot of times when professors take sabbaticals, they have a threshold of robust research that they are doing. This was not that.
Yeah, I think they take time out of the classroom so they can dedicate their time to research because they have to do so much research and get published to whatever for the school's credibility and all that stuff.
Right.
But I've always heard the term used almost exclusively in higher ed. In recent years, slowly over even more time, but more concentrated in recent years, I've been hearing more and more professionals, not that professors aren't professionals, but traditionally employed and or self-employed people.
Outside of academia.
Talking about taking sabbaticals. I'm very curious because I know you're not here as an expert on sabbaticals, so don't feel like you have to represent the concept.
No, listen, when you hear me talk about my sabbatical, you will realize I am not an expert on sabbaticals.
Which is perfect because we don't need experts because is anyone really an expert on this? I think it looks different, especially outside of academia. But, and that's also why I'm having you and May Kay Sang, who's going to come and talk about her own. She's on her sabbatical at the moment. So I'm going to interview her after hers. Just to get two different perspectives on what it could look like, what it is. But to kick us off, where I want to start is, what did you know of sabbaticals? What made you even, what was the thing that led you to the idea, the awakening of, oh, this could be a thing for me?
First of all, I think I ended up calling it a sabbatical to lend it some legitimacy because in the end, I took 2 months off of work because I was about to lose my damn mind. And that was it.
Which,
honestly,
that's amazing that you did it.
It came out of therapy. It came out of therapy. I am such a fortunate woman that I was able to take 2 months away. So I'm Paige Worthy LLC, right? It's just me. I don't have contractors. I basically reached out to all of my clients and said, hey, I'm taking 2 months off for my mental health. Didn't start calling it a sabbatical until I was public facing with it. And everybody was like, okay, cool. Wrapped up everything I was working on with them. And June 2nd, I was out.
Peace, right? I like it. June 2nd. Peace out, too.
Yeah. And it took me a long time to adjust to the reality that I was about to not have to do anything for 2 months.
Well, I have so many questions because I want to know all about it. Yeah, but first, hold on a second because it just escaped me.
That happens.
This is why I need my own. Here's what I was going to say. First of all, the reason we're even doing this series this summer is because Faith and I are very interested in the idea of women's work, of emotional labor, unpaid labor, and how that kind of results often into overwhelm, stress, burnout, the results of all of the labor that we as women do. And so you were at that place of burnout, which is awesome because the conversation before this was with me and Nicole Havelka, and she's a burnout coach. So we talked about that specifically, and that's why, she's amazing. But I also want to talk about what are some things people are doing to avoid getting to the place of burnout. And the sabbatical idea, I think that's very much for a lot of people what it is. It's like, I just need some spaciousness. So first of all, I don't love that you were burnout, but I like that it relates so much to what we're talking about here, which is that's why this happens because of our laboring. So what got you to that point of burnout?
It's really hard being a solo business owner. Again, with the being a fortunate human, work has come to me in abundance for almost the whole time that I've had my business. So as far as hustling for work, it hasn't been that as much, but the context switching involved with working with multiple clients, with thinking about messaging and then website copy and then email copy, and then trying to balance everything and making sure that, I was doing my very best work for every project and giving it equal weight. That's exhausting, right? I can't even imagine if I were having to go out and cold call for work and reach out to prospects all the time. I couldn't. And I have my own mental health crosses to bear that just exist at a baseline. Those are exhausting. I had a bunch of health challenges crop up last year too. Those are exhausting. I don't have kids, but I do a lot of stuff around the house. I'm married, just like being an adult human in the world, and what the hell is going on out there is, it's so much. And it's not coincidental that I finally reached my breaking point in January. It's just like
right around said inauguration.
I got to this feeling of nothing matters. Why am I doing this? Like that teetering on the edge of hypernormalization, where I think I've gotten to the point where, life is not stopping. We are continuing on as the world burns, and I fucking hate it. But I wasn't there then. I was just in a puddle. So
Yeah.
it was a lot, and I chose to opt out of one of the only things that I felt could give. I had the financial runway. I had a small enough roster of clients that I could put a sharp end on it for the time being. And everybody was like, okay, cool, we'll pause. And we'll get right back into it when you're back.
Yeah.
So I had the finances and the grace built in to be able to do it. And so I did it.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's obviously a lot of privilege built in that. And I think we can just acknowledge that without you having to come back and feel like you have to, big giant asterisk, lots of privilege here. And of course, right? Not everyone gets to be able to do this kind of thing where they can take that space.
They don't.
And that said, it's also not just because there's privilege baked in and that you were able to do it doesn't make the decision to do it easier. It doesn't make your reality of all the weight you were carrying before it any less real. Like, right. All of that stuff is real. And that normalization piece, I think for so many people, we can feel that of like, we have so normalized that we are supposed to, quote unquote, be able to function and do all the things, and that when while the world burns down, and if we can't, it speaks to about us.
It's our failing.
Right. And not even our failing. And then because we are failures, right? Like we even internalize it off into that shame.
The shame place.
Which then just it all gets compounded, right? Because once you're operating out of that shame place, everything feels heavier, everything feels darker, it all feels impossible. And, I think so many people can relate to that feeling. So when you made this decision, I love that you were in therapy. That's great, right? So you're talking
every week since the dawn of time.
Good.
Yep.
Working on the mental health, dealing with that. But, so many people, even with the privilege to perhaps be able to step back from something, just having this conversation with a client today about how any of us can only juggle so many balls at one time. People
and
who
aren't a lot fewer than we think.
That's exactly it. Those of us who aren't real adept at juggling, we can only juggle one, maybe two. Like even two balls becomes hard. And when you start to add a third and a fourth and a fifth and you've got being a partner, you've got a home that you're taking care of, you've got multiple clients you're juggling, you've got the state of the world that's going on, you've got mental health issues that are going on. I'm sure you also have family and things that are going on there, right? Like we're talking a lot of balls happening. None of us are able to do that. And even the best jugglers at some point start to drop balls because there's tension and trying to juggle all of these balls. We can only do it for so long before our body says.
And by the way, some of the balls have massive spikes attached to them. Some of them are on fire.
And some of them are glass and they hit the ground and they feel like it feels anyway to us like they're going to break. And so it puts all this pressure on. I can't drop this ball. It's too precious and important. So even for people who have the ability to potentially let go of one of those balls, so many won't or can't because of all of this pressure they feel externally and internally to perform. No, I'm not allowed to do that. What does that say about me? Everyone will know I have failed. So even though you had the privilege to do this, it's still not always easy to make that decision. So how did you decide I'm going to overlook or be able to do this in spite of the fact that I'm sure in your head there was some part of you saying, I feel like a failure by letting go of this, like taking this time off of work. Other people are going to think I'm a failure, all of those messages. So how did you get through that to say, no, I'm going to give myself this space. I need it.
Had some really supportive voices in my head, some outside voices in my head. My therapist was incredibly supportive. Obviously, my financial planner also incredibly supportive. My husband, supportive. Several professional colleagues and all of my friends, like knowing that I could, they were like, do this for yourself. And the more you hear it, the more you allow yourself to believe it little by little, that like, this is a thing you need. This is a thing you can do. And there was one particularly loud voice who did not think that it was something I should do. And I had to, and it's a voice that speaks contrarily to many things that are in my best interest these days. And I'm not going to say who or what it's coming from, but I have had to have some serious conversations with myself about how much stock to put in the source of that voice. And it's a person whose voice really matters to me, but I have to listen to my own 42 entire years old. It's like, I can trust myself.
But don't we know? I mean, I love you, Mom, if you're listening, but my mom's 72 or 5 entire years old. And still those external voices can be, I mean, it doesn't matter, honestly, I think our age, because ultimately I think all of us are like 12 and just trying to function as adults, right?
The programming is loud.
So loud. And so for you to be able to give yourself that gift is really hard. You know, because that one loud voice can often be enough for many people to quiet all the other voices, right? Yeah. There may be 30 voices that say, yeah, you're amazing. Yeah. And the one voice that says no is the one we hear, right? It's that confirmation bias stuff. So kudos to you for being able to say, I'm going to do it.
Thank you.
Leading up to it now, and I know I'm going to rush through some of this because I want to be mindful of your timing. I don't want this to be a super long thing, but I want to just give people the highlights. When you decided this is what I'm going to do, you notified some clients that our time together will end before June 2nd. Like I'm going to wrap up anything I have going on. Were there other things you did to prepare yourself to think about what the time off would look like? Did you have a finite date with it? Did you have things you wanted to accomplish during that time, or was the goal to do absolutely nothing? Like, give me the lay of the land leading up to it.
So it was with clients, it was mostly just wrapping up projects that I had. And there was one client that had not so much a hiccup, but a really juicy belch that they encountered with a project. That's the grossest thing that I hope I will say today. I
absolutely love it though, but this is why you're a copywriter. It's great.
Lord help me never include that sort of language in anything I write. But
I don't know. I think it could be really good. Go ahead.
So had a really big snag with a project that ended up, well, I chose this, but we ended up having to take several steps back on a project that we had been working on. And I said, there is no way that I would let this drop for my client. So I actually ended up pushing myself back by about a week to help get some things under control and do what I thought was right by my client, because I just wouldn't have been able to sit with myself. So that happened. I was also sort of grounding my network in some expectations, and I was being loud about the fact that I was taking time off, because I do think it's something that people need to realize is an option. And for whatever reason, there are people for whom I am a voice that matters and a voice that they trust. So I frequently fail loudly. I take chances loudly, and I make choices loudly in the hopes that, maybe it, bing across somebody's mind and hit somewhere they live.
I love that you do that.
So other than that, again, therapist encouraged me, and so did my financial planner, who's also sort of a life planner type. They both encouraged me not to make a ton of plans, because this wasn't like, oh, I'm doing this structured thing to accomplish a certain, the research or whatever.
Not the academic sabbatical. Yeah.
This was like, girl, you literally can't. So don't try to fill your time with something else when really you sort of need to empty out first.
So the plan was no plans.
The plan was no plan, which is not a place that my
That's what I want to do
enjoys
with
being.
you. I'm sure it's not comfortable. So I want to talk about the personal part of this, of the expectations on self and letting go of all of our capitalist conditioning that tells us this time needs to be productive and useful. But first, part of that is
spoiler alert, it didn't. I didn't let go of it.
Well, okay, because I already heard you say this sort of well, I was going to do it this date. I pushed it back a week for this client. Yep. And first of all, it's a man-made, you created the timeline,
it was
right?
Completely arbitrary.
Right. So of course,
and
fine.
When I came back, I wasn't really back because I didn't have any work. These
right.
past couple of weeks, because I'm just back about a week and a half, it hasn't been much different, except that I've been sending some emails and making some plans.
Right. Now you're getting into the going back to the finding the work. Well, because, okay, so it's arbitrary when you started it. So pushing it back is also kind of like, it's arbitrary. Why does it matter?
It's fine.
And also there's this part around, I would worry if I was in your shoes, I would be thinking, if I make this concession, how many concessions will I be making? Right. Will I keep pushing it back or will I accept the little project as it comes in or right? So let's talk about the actual sabbatical time. This time you used 2 months, right? You had scheduled 2 months.
2 months. Yep.
So what ended up happening? Were there concessions made? Were you able to actually allow yourself to do nothing?
Not professionally. Like took my email off of my phone.
That's huge.
My work email came off my phone. And something to know about me is that I'm very good with work boundaries. Like I do not work nights. I do not work weekends. I was joking with a client last week that like I haven't worked a full day in 10 plus years, which is like only sort of a joke. I herkle-durkle in the mornings until like 10 o'clock and saunter to my desk and sometimes I'm like done at 3 o'clock. Like really, my work exists like around my life, and yet it still was this giant source of for me. So I did a very good job of disconnecting the time I was away. And the interesting thing, and this was a real slap in the face from one of those important voices in my ears, in my head, my planner guy. I just found new things to stress me out when the stress of work was gone.
Interesting.
So what have we learned?
Additional things that weren't there before, or the things that had been there just got louder?
I just let them have more of a starring role after just being supporting actors. I'm really not good at relaxing. I'm not.
Yeah, of course not. Why would you be? We live in a world that says you can't be.
It's part of my spicy brain, and it's also again the programming. You know that. I think you actually know both. I think you know both sides of that. I did do some really nice things for myself. I joined a gym and started working with a personal trainer because of my health challenges. I had really fallen off the fitness wagon, and moving really makes my body feel good. It calms my mind. Like I have a background in group fitness. Like I used to teach spin. I used to teach yoga. Like that part was a big part of my identity. And then my knee shit the bed, and I really have never gotten back to it. So started getting back to strength training. That felt great. I've been taking pottery classes, and I had a spring session of pottery class, and went into open studio a few times, and a few times. Made some stuff I'm really proud of. Made some stuff I'm really not proud of.
Well, it's part of it, right?
Pottery is hard.
The fickle beast, isn't it?
It is a fickle beast. Clay is wacky. And yeah, I read a lot of books.
Okay. So those are all the good, I don't want to categorize certain things as good or bad, but those are the things that felt like what you had intended for the sabbatical to feel like. What were the things, I know you said you just started worrying. You don't have to get too much into like details about what you're worrying, but like, what were the things that you were like, here's this conditioning showing up. Here's where I'm struggling to actually just let this time be the space that I needed it to be.
I think I just had it in my head that I was going to like start writing again for myself. It's a goal that I have for myself because I write so much for other people that I just don't have creative energy for my own stuff. And I had started a Substack, and I was like all set to start, blogging or whatever. And I found that when I stepped away from work, writing was the last thing I wanted to do.
That makes a lot of sense though, because it is so sort of like that still feels a bit like work. Yeah, like it's I need to make this useful time. But you didn't end up doing that. So that actually feels like you freed yourself from some of that conditioning. Are there places where you found it harder to ignore that and we're still showing up like in that I need to make this productive time?
You know what? I think most of that dialogue had just happened in my head. And in the end, I just I didn't I didn't have the energy to act on the shame. So
But
I just
also,
sat and felt idly terrible.
right. That's the problem. So there's that like emotional and mental labor though, where we're spinning and thinking and all of the conditioning is showing up. And then because of some of the other stuff, the shame or whatever, or just exhaustion, you can't act on it, but you can't also free yourself from it.
Couldn't let
To say,
go.
I'm going to fully enjoy this time because we're too busy spinning in the conditioning. So on a like scale of 1 to 10, 1 being it was a completely spacious, most amazing, like I was free from all of the conditioning, enjoyed myself to bits, couldn't recommend it enough sabbatical, to like 1, I basically didn't end up doing a sabbatical at all. Where would you put yours?
I'm going to put it at like a 6 3/4.
That's not bad. Not bad. I mean, considering, right? Part of the expectation
I'm glad I wasn't working. I have a very I do not dream of labor attitude about work. Like nothing I do is a calling. It's not the way that I view my vocation. Like it is a thing that I do so I can afford to go out with my best girlfriend for a fancy dinner tomorrow night or fly to Italy in October, both of which I am actually doing. Like it's all to just support my life, my glorious child-free life. But yeah, part of me missed work a little bit, but not enough to start back up again. I do like my clients a lot. You know, I wasn't like, oh, Jesus Christ, I'm going back to work. I had about a week of the Sunday scaries when it was almost time for me to go back. Yeah.
Well, okay. And now let's talk about the reentry because that's where you're at kind of now still. It's only been a couple weeks. What is the reentry looking like and how is it leaving you feeling now?
So I've had some recent developments there. During the sabbatical, couple of conversations that I had were that I didn't want to go back to having a bunch of clients to juggle, a bunch of projects to juggle. So I identified a couple of what a business coach and I have termed hell yes clients. I identified a couple of those hell yes clients and said, okay, when I come back, these are the 2 clients I want to dedicate my time to. So had a conversation with one of my hell yeses, actually went to an on-site with another one of my hell yeses last week. Like I got back Friday night at about 8:00. So this is all very recent. Was like all set to propose like a fractional CMO gig to hell yes number 1. But while I was on site, hell yes number 2 was like, do you want to join the team? And I went from being like up here, heart in my throat, so stressed, like there's so much to do, to completely regulating as I was having this conversation with them. And I have not had a job in a really long time. And this would not necessarily be a job, but it's a 1 client deal. And I'm taking it because that is the first time that I have felt spacious when thinking about client work in a really long time. So I'm about to be a one client woman. And my joke is that I'm going to give them 100% of 50% of my time. So I'm going to scale back the amount that I'm working and I'm going to focus on helping them to launch this big thing and see where it goes.
If they had approached you with this before your sabbatical, what do you think your response would have been?
I think it would have freaked me out. I'm not sure how I would have responded to them, but I think the idea of limiting myself, because scarcity is my best friend, right? So putting all of my eggs in one basket would have been terribly frightening to me. But when I came back with an empty basket, a smaller basket, and I was given the opportunity to fill it with, I can't continue with this egg metaphor. I wasn't prepared.
You're going to fill it with the prettiest, shiniest egg.
Yeah, I think I potentially have a golden egg to place in that basket. I really had some time to think about and being on site with them also, which I'm not sure I would have had the opportunity to do if I'd continued on the way I was. It made me realize how nice it felt to be part of an actual team, how nice it felt to be able to really dig my brain into one topic.
Yeah.
And how readily my creativity flowed to that and how much I brought to the table because I'm not trying to bifurcate or however many fricate myself for all of the different projects that I have going. It just felt really nice. And I don't know if I hadn't had the space to do that, if I would have gotten there.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that leads me to where I, kind of want to basically end things, which is what did that time, those 2 months that you gave yourself, again, asterisk, privilege acknowledged, what did it teach you, especially as it relates to like labor in our culture, but just specifically to what you learned?
I think one thing I learned is that if I step away, my clients don't go out of business. Life carries on, right? I'm not curing cancer. I'm not instigating world peace. Like, I'm writing marketing content. I know that what I do is important to my clients' businesses, but like, we get by. They get by. So I think it took some of the pressure off. Like, it's not always like fire trucks and like, it's not. It can wait. So it helped me let go of some of that false urgency, I think. It reinforced the idea that like work is not and has never been my identity. Like, who I am professionally is a small part of who I am holistically. And I think this was an idea given to me, but it was very much a wherever you go, there you are thing, where like work is not the end all be all source of my stress. I would need a lot more time to unpack, deprogram, whatever term you want to give it. 2 months was just a delicious taste.
But what does that mean then for you moving forward and continuing that work? Like, has it fundamentally shifted some things for you and how you want to approach labor, work, but also just pressures outside of that?
I think that for me, it has confirmed and put into practice that work is something that fits into my life and not the other way around. Like, as I've been thinking about how to structure like a half-time arrangement with this client, I've been like, okay, well, I have therapy this day. I have afternoon pottery on Wednesdays. I have these different things that I want to make sure I have time for. I already have travel planned. I've already got these things. So I'm like, here are the times that I have to give to work. So remembering that I am a priority feels important. It's going to be an interesting conversation when I meet with my therapist next to talk about everything that's happened since I saw her last. But yeah, I think it did change that. And I think it taught me that I need more time. Nothing was getting figured out in 2 months.
Mm-hmm.
A lifetime does not resolve itself in 2 months.
Isn't that the truth? Mm-hmm. Which kind of goes back to some of our capitalist conditioning on like, okay, I got 2 months and I'm going to solve this problem, right? Like this idea that we need to reach the finish line and do it as quickly as possible.
And also like everything got even worse in the world over those 2 months, like Jesus Christ. So like I took this stuff away and it was replaced in part by chaos. And I'm like so pissed about that in so many ways. And like privilege, right? Like it's all in here. I can opt out if, things get too hard or whatever. Like I can just stop looking at the news, but it doesn't.
It also doesn't lighten the mental load. Again, going back to that labor that we don't talk about. We think about labor at the time that you're sitting at your desk, toiling on your desktop or whatever your job is, right? When you're actively engaged in that work. But labor also includes the emotional labor of feeling the pain of those that are people you love, for whom this directly affects, even if it doesn't directly affect you, and the ways that it does directly affect you. And the mental labor of like having to think about what would happen and how could I help people. And all of that stuff is also labor that isn't
always there.
Exactly. It's always there. And then we're in this cycle of stress. It's kicking all of the
in the shame that we're not doing everything that we feel like we can or should. Being alive's a real trip right now.
I mean, and it probably always has been and always will be. And that doesn't change the fact that the fundamental problem is we don't have support structures in place to help us navigate that. It's one thing that life is always going to life, but do we have systems that help us manage all of that, right? There's no one who's during, when things get really hard that's coming to clean your house. There's nobody, showing up to say, hey, if you're not able to work, I'll pay your bills. Like, we don't have systems that allow us to be with all of that labor. It just has to sit on top of the capitalist demands. And that becomes so challenging. Okay. Let's finish here, which is for going back to that other person at the beginning who also has privilege. Because again, obviously this may not even be an option. It is not an option for many people. And we acknowledge that. And that is also part of that systemic failure that some people can and some people can't. And that is a problem that we address and needs to be fixed. For those folks who share your privilege, and I know that's probably a great deal of people listening who also have some amount of financial privilege, have a partner that could help, whatever, and yet they still don't feel that permission slip to say, I can step away from some obligation for a certain amount of time. After having done it, what kind of advice might you give that person? What would you say to them?
If you feel a pull to step away, find a way to do it. Even if it's just a week I feel people don't even take vacations anymore. Just give yourself some time and don't try not to put pressure on yourself to make up for lost time in other parts of your life. If you're going to take that time, this is not your time to patch up the staircase where you had your handrails installed. This is not the time to deep clean your shower. Or, you don't have to write 1,000 letters to Congress people about all great. If you want to, if that's what you want to do, do it. But if you need to crash out and stare at a wall and dissociate for a few days to just give yourself a little bit of space, I think you should try. It's just, but also it isn't for everyone, but also get a therapist.
Co-endorse, 100%. Yes. This is also where we have systemic failures because every human who wants to have therapy should be able to access that care.
Everyone.
And that is not possible.
And I think some people should have a therapist forced on them. There, I said it.
Well, that also. But it's also just not even an option, even for those who want it.
It's so expensive. Therapists are so booked. And I understand why therapists don't take insurance. That's another systemic failure. It's
everything about our healthcare system is completely fucked up and is broken beyond repair. So and yet we just keep going with it. But so all of those things acknowledged. If again, though, the ways that we can also explore this, like you mentioned, is even if it's just a weekend and it's saying, I hope for, but again, here's where we have systemic failures. If you have kids, if there's literally no one to watch them because we don't live in it takes a village sort of system. Yep. But if you have the ability, once a quarter, I go to a hotel alone for 2 nights. It's not huge. It's not a great vacation, but it is time where I give myself that full permission to completely decompress and just be with myself. Is that enough to heal a lifetime? No, but it helps.
No, but even if I think you can, I know there are several people that I've met through you, Taina is one of them, who has an autoresponder on their email. You're not going to hear from me right away. And that's just part of her practice. If we can train ourselves and train the people who reach out to us to not expect this Pavlovian response to whatever it is you think you need, maybe that can be one little thread that you pull to disengage yourself from that programming.
Has your email gone back on your phone?
It has. And I look at it all the time and I hate it.
And here we are though, because we're still swimming in the water.
What? We are. The water is chunky.
It is.
I'm taking it off this afternoon.
Love it.
Nothing needs to nothing's that important.
Isn't that really the thing? Yeah.
It isn't. Yeah. And the work I'm doing is important to me, but it's not 30 seconds after I get an email, I respond.
It's capitalism that has conditioned us to think that way, right? And now with, every new iteration of technology only reinforces and deepens that. AI now with the immediacy with which you can do it, and all of it, it's one thing after another. Social media, it started with CNN and the 24-hour news cycle, and then we had social media, and now we've got AI, and everything keeps accelerating the pace with which we expect life to run. And trying to unhook from that, it's fucking hard because it's literally the air you breathe, and you can't not breathe. And there's no way to breathe air that isn't that air. So like, yeah, you take
it
the 2 months
also
off.
chokes us.
Yeah. Yeah.
That
But then
air
how do you
is
get rid of it?
toxic.
Right. Yeah. And so it's like you try to clean up your air, and that 2 months was like a filter. You can get a little filtration system for a while, but then you go right back to like you've removed the filter and you're back in the air.
Yeah.
Right. And it's easy. Of course, you put the email back on the phone. Of course, you start to get back into that, like, because you're breathing the air, and it's that pause to remember, what did I learn? Can I take some of those lessons and continue, even if it's not the same 24 hours of this spaciousness? How do I build in those pockets of it? So
yeah. And I do think that stuff adds up. Those moments.
Well, if the other stuff does, right?
Up.
Yeah, the other stuff adds up. So can the ways we can try to reject it, at least to try to create more, again, balance or harmony or whatever the right word is. It's hard to get to a place where the equilibrium is ever fully balanced, but we can try to restore it to something that feels a bit more harmonious. Because right now, most of us are way out of whack on that, right? Our meters are all the way over into capitalism. And how do we try to get back to something?
Yeah.
We've been gone long, but I find it fascinating. And I'm so glad you shared your story. And again, I know that you were kind of like, I don't know if I'm the person to talk about this, because I don't know that my sabbatical was like, I don't know, did I win the sabbatical game or whatever? Yeah. But I think that it's important to hear everything about what this can look like, even if that led you to say, I'm almost rejecting the way I was living. Like, I don't know if I want to be a solopreneur, entrepreneur kind of person anymore. That's okay. I want to share that story too, because I don't think many of us, I think as entrepreneurs, the longer you're in the game, the more you feel like stepping away is, again, that version of losing, failing, whatever.
Failure.
Yeah. And we need to give ourselves permission to say, if working for yourself isn't working anymore, then why keep doing it? Why would you do it for yourself?
Nothing, like, no door is slamming and locking forever.
Yes.
Like, there's a fluidity in life that we don't acknowledge because black and white thinking rules us. And like, we know that's patriarchy, that's white supremacy, like that's all the isms that we hate, that's part of it. And so, I think if you can allow yourself some fluidity and just see what happens, just test it out. There will be something there, something you'll learn that you can take.
Well, I'm excited to see the continuation of your journey and what happens.
Yeah, same.
Yeah. And I'm proud of you for taking that time, because it's not easy. And I hope those listening find ways to do similar stuff for themselves. And thank you for sharing your story. I think it's a perfect story of what a sabbatical can be.
Thank you. I'm really glad I was able to talk to you about it.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing.
Thanks, Becky.
Thanks for being here. And again, we hope you'll consider joining our paid membership to help support our work. The link is in the show notes. When you join, you get all of this, obviously, but also bonus content in a private podcast feed, as well as free admission into our Feminist Founders Society community calls. It's a wonderful growing community, and we'd love to have you be a part of it and to support the work we do with Feminist Founders. Until next time, keep kicking toxic capitalism to the curb, friends.